what is going on in my gut? Maybe not mine personally, but just in general, what happens in your gut? I know what happens in my gut. Trust me, you don't want to know that. How does our diet impact gut bacteria? Meaning, ultimately, I'm trying to get to lifestyle choices. Does a vegan or plant-based lifestyle differ from our carnivorous diet lifestyle?
A diet that is kind of high in animal products, that kind of specifically creates a population of bacteria that is harmful to the gut lining.
Yeah, the more that we've moved indoors as a technological society, the more we've cut ourselves off from practically everything that our gut needs. The reason why we're all here is because of beans. I've said it before, I'll say it again.
Oh, I say it again. You've been had. You've been took. You've been hoodwinked. Bamboozled. Led astray. Run amok. This is what he does.
You've been had. And what makes matters worse is you're allowing it. A lifetime of nutritional deception has forced us into the fight for our lives. We are the plant-based riot. We are here to tear down that curtain of secrecy created by our very own American food industry. A plant-based diet and a disease-free life are not out of reach. Make the choice. Wow. So I know we're talking about gut health here, but I just thought when we first started talking about this a while back as a potential concept, I just keep hearing gut health bacteria. It's coming up all over the place. And my kids were at the pediatrician the other day, and on our counter are like these BioGaia. I forgot the name of the packs, right? I'm like, these chewable things, and I'm like, what's going on? Maybe this has been around, and I'm just starting to notice stuff. Like my awareness radar is kind of turning on. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. But I'm like, no, I don't. This hasn't really been around. What's going on? So the reason why I want to like hear your guys' input on gut health and like how this either makes you whatever, how it affects your body. I'm super curious as to what is going on and why is it such a topic of conversation now. And so in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, this must relate to dietary lifestyles, and things are getting to be more popular, and the awareness like churning in the universe is happening. So I don't know, there's something's going on, right? Like, this is cool. And I read somewhere, everybody knows on the podcast I play the role of the village idiot, but the gut as the second brain, when I read that, I was like, this is genius. That I need to learn more about this. And the bigger question is, how come this was never a topic when we were in school? This is the first time I'm ever really talking about gut health. That's never come up in any kind of conversation. Maybe I'm hanging around the wrong people. I don't know, but this is going to be a good episode, you guys.
I remember as a kid, my dad would tell me about acidophilus and how great that is.
What is that?
It's like a beneficial bacteria that is, it's in like certain foods that help to revitalize your gut, but you have to get it in like a refrigerated section of a health food store or something. When I was a kid, that's what my dad would take me out to get. And he would tell me, like, if you have a bunch of antibiotics, it destroys all the healthy bacteria, and then you have to re-inoculate yourself with acidophilus, which is like lactic acid bacteria or something like that.
Interesting. Maybe he was onto something then, huh?
That was like in the 90s that I heard about it.
In the 90s.
Yeah.
That makes you feel old, Brian.
Gut health has kind of always been on the radar, but not until recently has like research advancements and technology and tools in the laboratories.
You're the tool in the laboratory.
What's that?
I said you're the tool in the laboratory.
Yeah. You sound just like my PI. Because of these advancements in our ability to measure them, it's starting to get a lot more mainstream now, and we're starting to understand a lot more about bacteria and the role that it plays in health and in the gut. So
No, that's cool. This is some pretty cool stuff. So as you guys have probably guessed, we are talking about healthy gut bacteria, and the name of our show today is Go With Your Gut. How creative we are over here at the Plant-Based Riot. So is the age-old saying true? Do all diseases begin in the gut? So in this episode, gut bacteria, probiotics, gut flora, microorganisms. Your gut is your second brain, controlling mood, cognition, energy levels, libido, creative output. We're going to be unpacking this mystery and trying to explain to me how all this works. So I can't wait for this. We want to thank Harache Farms. Harache is a co-op of backyard farms and gardens providing greens and fruits available at the Atwater Village Farmers Market. Come check him out, rain or shine, as it was last weekend, even a little bit of hail. So I got to ask, Mike, what is new at the garden? What is new at the market from the garden?
What's new at the market is mushrooms. We're growing,
What?
Yeah, we're growing the blue oyster mushroom and the pearl oyster.
Very nice.
Yeah, we're growing them underneath the microgreen and sprout trays, and in reusable buckets that we are filling with aspen wood shavings that are inoculated with the mycelium. So you mist the sprouts in trays, and then the residual water drips down and helps to get the mycelium growing.
Is it being received well by the customers?
Yeah, people are all over it.
You sold out?
We sold out, yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Brian, these we went over to harvest that first bucket, and no joke, it was like a whole thing of mushrooms, and no joke, dude, like bigger than your palm. It was crazy. How do you cook those? What do you do?
You can saute them, simple olive oil, salt.
That's it.
Yeah, stir fry.
Okay. Wow.
I just want to go on record and say that when I first met you two lunkheads, I wanted to grow mushrooms.
I
Remember?
know. Now that you're gone, I'm gone.
And now that I'm gone, you're growing beautiful mushrooms, and
Sorry,
we were
Brian.
looking into possibly
I just wasn't ready.
We were going to look at buying a vending machine, right? 'Cause
Yeah,
you were
that's right.
talking
That's
about
right.
how we
You do
have
it
to-
in the vending machine.
because of the humidity.
Yeah. Turns out it was here all along. We just didn't know it.
We just had to wait till you took off there.
Yeah, because I remember, Mike, you're saying like, well, we need trees. And then we went and met your one friend that owned all those vending machines. Or was that your friend, Dan? I don't remember.
No, it was.
That was my friend.
Okay, yeah.
Don't take my
And we
friends,
were,
bro.
And we were going to buy vending machines and grow mushrooms and throw the vending machines on the back of trucks, remember, to take to the market?
Awesome. Wow.
Right.
The riot. Well, thank you for being a sponsor, Mike. That's great. We love that. We are the Plant-Based Riot, a weekly commutable length, evidence-based call to action conversation about living a healthy and disease-free life. Follow us on the old Instagram at Plant-Based Riot. Visit the rearranged Facebook page.
Yep.
Right, Brian?
Yep.
Okay, good. Visit that. It's Plant-Based Riot Facebook page. And we are soon to be available. All these episodes will be available on YouTube at the Plant-Based Riot. I'm Dan. I am just crossed over a 4-year mark here for vegan plant-based. I got to change that. Our little script here says I'm a 3-year now. I got to update that.
Congratulations.
I know. Thanks, guys. And thanks for all of your guys' encouragement and input. Father of 3 fantastic plant-based kids, but they're starting to make their own choices now, which is very interesting, and we're getting a lot out of it. Anyways, we have a few gardens here, and we're teaming up with a co-op, and it's a fun, crazy, adventurous life. That's me.
I'm Brian. I'm a metabolic scientist, and I've been, what should I say? I've been vegan for like 96 years now. Remember, it kept going up?
I do.
Yeah. I have been supporting vegan solidarity. You get it?
Dairy.
Like solidarity.
Solidarity.
For the past 25 years, and raising a plant-based family with my wonderful wife, Susan. I got to give a shout out to my daughter, Bella. She just turned 5.
Wow. Happy birthday,
like,
Bella.
Not just turned 5, but kind of a few weeks ago turned 5. And yeah, we're up here in foggy Humboldt County,
Yes,
living the vegan dream.
So we have this part of this is on Skype into our ears, and it's probably as complicated as you can make a podcast, but we're doing it. We're still going.
That's how we roll.
And across the way here, we have Farmer Mike.
That's right.
The plant hustler.
Yeah, I'm Mike Wood, backyard farmer, also known as Moringa Mike. And I've got a couple of backyards that I can farm. It's at 6 backyards now. Basically I've got a farm team now. I'm so lucky to have so many friends helping me grow more and more. So
it is getting big over there.
Yeah, I'm trying to sell as much as we can at the markets. Hopefully we'll open a second farmer's market in the next couple of weeks.
That's exciting. I remember you guys talking about that. Where do you think you're going to go? Do you know?
It could be La Cañada Flint Ridge.
Oh, on the overpass, right? Is that where they do it?
Be.
Yeah.
We're looking around, but
good.
Trying to get a midweek market though.
That's smart to space it out, right? Well, good luck with that. That's very exciting. I hope we're around to help participate. And we got Brian up there with the Humboldt. What's it called? The Humboldt
crud.
The Humboldt crud. Tell us, what are you here for? You got to tell Mike and our listeners the Humboldt crud.
So I was informed by everyone up here when I started getting like a froggy voice and sore throat and congestion. Students at HSU and locals are just like, you have the Humboldt crud. And it's like a thing that exists up here, not to locals, but to people that move here. Because it's very moist here all the time. Because we're right by the ocean, and then we have the mountains, and the mountains are covered in snow in the day, and then they all kind of melt, in the afternoon. And we're just kind of in this valley of constant moisture. So that plays a role in developing the Humboldt crud, which I currently have.
Wow.
So, yeah, I'm putting down some
Is
halls right now.
it like a bacterial thing or a fungal thing?
Probably a little of both. And there's a lot of mold up here, so I don't know if it's like mold driven or if it's fungus. I mean, you talk about mushrooms. Mushrooms grow everywhere here. Like they're everywhere. So
that's awesome.
I don't know. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm throwing this your way. We're just going to dive right in here. 20 minutes later. No, that's on me. We like to talk. We like the stories here, as you guys do too. Okay, gentlemen, what the heck happens in my gut? What is microbiota? I'm standing here. I'm showing my cards here. What am I trying to say? Anyways, what is going on in my gut? Maybe not mine personally, but just in general. What happens in your gut? I know what happens in my gut. Trust me, you don't want to know that.
So the microbiota.
Thank you. Jeez.
Frittata is it's a term that represents like this really complex system of diverse bacteria, viruses, fungi that have essentially claimed our bodies as their own, like kind of rent free. So we have like trillions of these living bugs and organisms in our lower gut or our distal gut, also known as the colon. And basically their presence and the type of population that we have is now being shown to kind of fuel pathology or pathogenic states or potentially fend off diseases. So it's really interesting stuff. And, remarkably, this microbiota is being recognized as a second brain or a second organ that has the capacity to communicate and correspond with all these other tissues and organs in our body. And we never really knew that before. So very, very interesting stuff. But if we take care of them, if we take care of these bugs, they actually help us live much better, healthier lives. And if we piss them off and upset them, it kind of goes the other way. So,
So wait, is this why I never heard about this growing up? Is this recent learnings about this, or has this always been going on?
yeah, it's gaining more momentum now. Like, there's a lot more companies coming out. I mean, you guys see kombucha everywhere, right? I mean, everyone's selling that now. There's a lot of companies coming out that are selling probiotics and prebiotics, and everybody, just like we see with every other thing in health and fitness, there's waves of this popularity that comes, and people try to sell these products and make millions, and we really don't have the answers to demonstrate that what they're selling works, or even more importantly, isn't harmful to the body.
Yeah, I feel like if you're of the kind of person who thinks that they're gonna like buy the product that's gonna fix your health, health is gonna continue to be elusive for you. There is no silver bullet, and there never has been one. But not to cast shade on the gut health sort of wave of enthusiasm, but I feel like you can't really expect to just buy a prebiotic and a probiotic as if that's the answer, because to me that's almost like a separation between what good food is and trying to extract from food what's going to make you healthy.
You're saying you could get this in food. You should be able to find the balance within food, not in supplements.
It's been all around us, since we could think about, like, since farming began, since we were like, less evolved creatures, like we've had it, like since before we could even speak or write, we had this, it's been around.
So. I like that. Well, how does gut bacteria then impact health, and is there a correlation?
Yeah, so one of the things that a lot of the research is showing right now is that these bugs, right, these bugs that are living in us, the more diverse the population of these bugs, the greater the health benefit they have. So, like, diversity is super, super important for healthy benefits with gut bacteria. When there's, like, no variability, or there's an absence of diversity, that's kind of when we run into like these negative health associations and complications that are associated with poor gut health. And that, like I said, the gut is kind of this, like you said, a second brain or an independent organ that communicates with all these other systems in our body. So if it's not healthy, it will use mechanisms to communicate with other systems in the body or other organs, and it will essentially spread that distress signal. It's really all about the diversity of the bacteria that we put in our body. And I do say put because through doing the research for this episode, I found out that we have total control of what kind of environment we create for these bugs. So we can control what populations we allow to populate, and it's in our hands. It's in our hands, gentlemen.
Yeah. I found that, like, I have a story that this episode reminds me of, and that is that when I was a kid, my mom used to tell me that she couldn't eat strawberries, and I was like, what? Like, why wouldn't you want to eat a strawberry? She's like, I just can't eat them. I can't digest them. And I was like, that's insane. But then I later learned that she has what's called diverticulitis, and I never knew what it was until I started researching it recently. But as the name sounds, divert or diversion, it's like in your gut you get these, like, you can get these pockets where it's like a little divot that starts to form, and it's like think of it as like a pocket that gets deeper and deeper inside of your gut, and then as it gets real deep, and you're eating foods, little things like little seeds from a strawberry falls
Sure.
down into this little pocket, and you can't get out. And it just becomes like rancid in there. And all kinds of anaerobic bacteria start growing down in there because there's no oxygen, or there's very low oxygen. And if your food particles are kind of like getting stuck down into this little patch or pouch, then it's just going to promote the growth of not the right kind of gut bacteria. I mean, we're talking about stuff that produces toxins.
I see.
You know, they're going to give you brain fog, and they're going to give you, you know, leaky gut, perhaps, and irritable bowel syndrome, and, you know, and I thought to myself, like, what would cause diverticulitis? And there's a number of known causes for it, but generally, it's caused by a diet that's high in processed foods and animal products and not enough fiber. So, not to say that, you know, veganism is the only way or plant-based is the only way, but the gist of it that I get is that if you don't eat fiber, if you don't eat enough fiber throughout your life, your body will lose its ability to digest fiber. And it gets to a point where you can no longer eat healthy foods because your body loses its ability to do that. You know, like if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yes.
If you don't use your intestine as it was designed or as it was evolved, you're going to lose it. It's going to fall apart on you.
Wow.
Within your lifetime.
Yeah, so kind of to piggyback off of that, you know, one of the things that I realized through doing research on this topic is that a diet that is kind of high in animal products, that kind of specifically creates a population of bacteria that is harmful to the gut lining, right? Where it can create those pockets due to the chronic inflammation that this bacteria produces. So, you know, if it's interesting because if you're on a diet that is, you know, low in plant food stuff and high in animal products, you could be unintentionally harming the fortitude of the gut, right? Of that cellular lining of the gut, where then when you try to eat something like a strawberry, you can't enjoy it because a lifetime of consuming these products that have this adverse bacteria population in there, it has created pockets in the gut where those little seeds could get in there and further exacerbate that condition. So that's like really interesting.
You guys mentioned like the diversity a second ago. Does that have any correlation to the term dysbiosis, or what does that mean?
So like dysbiosis is like the opposite of symbiosis, right? Or
Sure.
so like if it's like a dystopian novel, like it's something gone awry, you know,
I see.
Biologically speaking.
So it's like
within your gut.
an imbalance, not imbalance then.
Right.
Yeah, so when it comes to the bacteria in the gut, it like that kind of term is like a disappropriate balance of like the beneficial microbes to the pathogenic microbes. So for the all intents and purposes of this conversation, we're just going to say the pro-inflammatory and the anti-inflammatory.
Okay.
So like when you have dysbiosis, that's a shift in those ratios where you no longer have an equilibrium, right? You have a disequilibrium, which is a loss of diversity.
Yeah.
And you know, you were asking like how does our gut impact our health? When we have that dysbiosis and we have that shift, and unfortunately, it's usually in the pathogenic direction, right? So because our diets are so high in saturated fat and cholesterol and low density lipoproteins and food with no fiber, we generally shift towards that pathogenic micro kind of biome environment. And with that, like, there's all these diseases associated with that. So when you have a shift in that ratio and it favors the pro-inflammatory environment, those are all associated with reflux and irritable bowel syndrome and type 2 diabetes and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and inflammatory bowel disorders and Alzheimer's and autism, and all these things are associated with that shift.
Wow.
And what's really funny is autism and inflammatory bowel disorders, those have been, the finger for those conditions have been pointed at gluten for such a long time. Right? Everybody's like picking on gluten. And I thought about that when I was like reading these articles. And maybe gluten, which is a plant protein, isn't the bad guy here. Right? Like maybe the bad guy is all that horrible food that you've been eating that has changed your microbiota, and now you have a distressed gut, and you have leaky gut, and you have, as Mike said, these like small little pockets that become further irritated by any other food that's pushed down there.
So then you're only operating on one brain instead of two.
You are, yeah. You're like you're purposely cutting off that second brain.
You know what? You kind of jogged my memory when you were talking about the diversity of bacteria and microbes in your gut. And I read an article about how the average person, such as an American or someone living in, Europe, in a first world country, the average person in a modern civilization has about 40% less diversity in their gut than someone who lives as a native tribal type society, in which most of your time is spent outdoors. And so one of the possible reasons they had for the lack of diversity was that the average person in the U.S., for example, will spend 90% of their time indoors. And then in addition to that, it's relatively common to have kind of like an obsession with cleanliness and to like sterilize things and to clean surfaces so religiously that you don't really expose yourself to like what's in soil, for example. Like 1 gram of soil has like billions and billions of bacteria and other microbes in it. It's so like there's more microbes in a gram of soil than there are like stars in the sky. It's crazy.
Wow.
But the more that we've moved indoors as a technological society, the more we've cut ourselves off from practically everything that our gut needs.
Wow.
So, Mike, do any of these bacteria in the soil help kind of produce nitrogen?
Well, I mean, there's rhizobium bacteria, and that's what peas use to.
Okay.
In the roots.
So does bacteria play a role in creating nitrogen? And that's nitrogen is favorable by plants, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Like legumes and things like that, they use a lot of nitrogen. So does the bacteria, is there like a symbiotic relationship there, or is it just using purely nitrogen from the atmosphere to help grow?
I mean, as far as I know, it's a relationship in which plants feed sugars. Like a plant root will engulf the rhizobium bacteria, and then they'll feed sugars to it.
Yeah.
And then after it's trapped it within a nodule and gives it that sugar, then the bacteria is able to use nitrogenous gas from the air.
Ah, okay. Okay.
To convert it into, liquid nitrogens.
Got it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's that was a lot to process there, Mike. I'm still trying to unpack that in my brain here. So
yeah, I mean, the reason, if I was to give you a little bit more perspective on that, it's the reason why we're all here is because of beans. I've said it before. I'll say it again.
You have. Let me hear it.
And so, the reason why beans are here is because bacteria are helping those beans along by making nitrogen for them, right? So, the bacteria are really the ones making it happen. We think plants are, somehow, able to do this, but they get so much help from the bacteria. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. So, you could say the reason why we have plentiful sources of protein on this planet is because of bacteria. doing all this heavy lifting for us.
So back the bacteria.
Yeah, definitely.
So the Plant Hustler's new slogan is going to be, from here on in, I've said it being for, and I'll say it again. That's your new T-shirt, man.
That's awesome.
He said it like such a gangster too.
And I'll say it again.
You're scaring me, man. LA's making you hard. Inglewood.
It's a hard city.
It is a hard city. Speaking of hard city, how does our diet impact gut bacteria? Meaning, ultimately, I'm trying to get to lifestyle choices. Does a vegan or plant-based lifestyle differ from our carnivorous diet lifestyle? And does our gut bacteria react differently? Throwing that your guys' way.
Yeah, so our the bugs in our gut are 100% dependent on the type of food that we eat, and not only what we eat, but how consistently we deliver that food. And I'll get to that in a little bit. So like long-term dietary habits are a huge player in this area. Okay.
So is Mike.
So like if you, yeah. So like if you think of like, what are we so known for in America? Like yo-yo dieting, right? Like every month it's a new diet. So a lot of research is showing that people that are in constant transition into different diets are causing like major disruption of the microbiota.
Yeah.
And because there's no consistency there. So it seems that the type of food we eat is super, super important, and how consistent we eat that.
Right, like within 24 hours of changing your diet, you're significantly changing the microbes in your gut.
It's literally that quick.
Significantly changes your emotional health.
Yeah, totally. Yes. Okay. Right. So that's the hangry thing, right? Like, is that part like that affects what you eat, affects your mood and everything?
Right. Like we're more bacteria and microbes than human. Like we think that we're these that we're ourselves, but we're not. We're a mosaic. We're mostly bacteria. So if we can't keep the bacteria happy, then we're finished.
That's right.
I like that.
Don't piss the bugs off. So if we think about like I said, it's not just time in the diet, but it's the type of diet. So there's a lot of research out there showing now that like a positive gut bacteria environment is associated with like phytoestrogen. So like we had a conversation on phytoestrogen. Do you guys remember that?
The bean episode.
Yes.
Yeah, the soybean episode.
So
right?
you think you can dance?
Yeah. So everyone's everyone's talking about how harmful soy is, and how bad it is for you, and how phytoestrogen gives you moobs. Right? We talked about that.
Boobs for men.
There's a lot of research out there that shows that the phytoestrogen is a major player in developing a healthy gut bacteria, and that type of environment. Short chain fatty acids. So Mike, where do we find short chain fatty acids?
Short chain fatty acids.
Yes.
Those are in plants?
Those are in plants. Give Mike a sticker.
Ooh,
the plant hustler got it.
Knew it.
So like short chain fatty acids play a huge role in developing healthy gut bacteria. So, and I'm going to totally mangle this. So Mike, you better help me here. Isothiocyanates. Did I say that right?
I would say cyanate, but
cyanates.
Don't quote me on that.
Isothiocyanates. That's the chemical found in broccoli, kale, bok choy, right? So all these like really dark greens also play a very important role at developing I'm not going to say anti-inflammatory environments where the bacteria hang out and chill out. All right. So those are all really positive things. And they also show that these plant-based substances create more diversity in the gut, right? We kept talking about that diversity issue, than non-plant-based substances. So if we talk about, the carnivores, these foods, they generally have high levels of bile salts in that TMAO. And these show decreases in the diversity of bacteria, and they also have more destructive implications in the gut and pro-inflammatory populations. We get the dysbiosis again, start to outweigh the anti-inflammatory bacteria population. So
plus there's antibiotics that could be in there too.
Absolutely.
So it's like almost like
absolutely.
If you're eating animal products, there could be a cocktail of germicidal things that are in the meat, or in, so it's not just antibiotics. That's just one thing. There's all these other things like TMAO, like and nitrate salts. Eating processed meats like bacon and sausage is associated with higher levels of colorectal cancer.
Of course, right?
So
the only thing I can add to
microbes
that,
get killed
right?
off. Yeah.
Did you know the Surgeon General? Guess how many pieces of bacon this U.S. Surgeon General states that one person should eat in a year? Take one guess.
0.
That's very close.
Like point.
Yeah, it's like
1.
Go ahead, Mike.
0.1 for Mike. You're very close. You're getting closer.
They shouldn't be prescribing any of it because saturated fat and cholesterol is not a recognizable macronutrient that we should be giving any quantity to the body.
So they say 2. Why are they even say a person should only be eating 2 pieces of bacon per year if they chose to, right? Like cut it up, maximum of 2.
It shows how destructive it is. And that 2 probably came from the damn
lobbyist
pig industry, right? The swine industry.
Better keep your voice down, Brian. I don't want us to get sued. Okay, I'm scared. I'm scared, Brian.
Okay, sorry, I digress.
Forced me to say that. I'm just saying.
Sorry.
So we were talking about vegan versus carnivore lifestyle affecting your gut health. Did we feel pretty good about that?
We could talk about it a little more, and Mike wanted to add something with didn't you want to add something with the polyphenols, or do you want to?
Oh yeah, so like polyphenols are associated with gut health.
What is a polyphenol?
So a polyphenol is like it's in all fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, coffee, and one example would be a flavonoid, which is basically like an antioxidant. So it's like I'm trying to like zoom out and zoom in. But the vibrancy and the color of foods, such as like fresh vegetables, when you see like really vibrant color, you're looking at polyphenols, and they basically are like these powerhouses of growth for beneficial bacteria. And what's interesting is that it seems as though in our lives we're constantly being exposed to like toxins. We're constantly being exposed to like maybe like if like I live in LA, right? So the biggest source of pollution in LA is ozone. And ozone O3 is basically like a free radical that I'm breathing in. Right? I'm breathing in this free radical, so it's going to cause my body to go into oxidative stress. And if you're eating foods that have a lot of polyphenols, they're going to be antioxidants. So they're going to help to reverse the oxidation that your body's exposed to. Right? So I'm thinking about myself as like this person being exposed to these free radicals, but really it's the gut microbiome that's getting negatively impacted by oxidative stress. So when my beneficial bacteria in my gut starts getting harmed by free radicals, also known as oxidative stress, they're getting killed off. Right? So like you have to somehow offset that. You have to put it back into balance. The more fruits and veggies you eat, the more you can bring some balance back and reverse the oxidative stress, right? So like if you're breathing in ozone, and you happen to be, eating a lot of animal products, and on top of that you're smoking, and on top of that you're not getting enough sleep. Like, you're just promoting all these like extra ways in which your microbiome can get killed off, right? So like,
Wow.
the best thing we can do is like either leave LA, because if you leave LA then you're in better air,
Sure.
or like promote driving electric cars, and like, you know, try to get the air cleaned up. I mean, for crying out loud, like, Environmental Protection Agency, please help us. You know, like, but you know, eating healthier certainly is gonna offset the negative effects of oxidative stress.
So eat more.
Watercress.
Yes. Yes.
Insert vegetable.
Yes.
You could
So,
visit them
you
at
know-
the Atwater Village Farmers Market.
Yeah.
Are we selling them right now?
Yeah.
Are they on sale now?
Dude,
It's watercress season, man.
it's,
Oh, good
it's
plug.
banging.
Good plug.
It's banging
Yes.
out there right now, Brian. It's crazy. The bricks are covered. It's game on.
Yeah. So really quick, because you were asking about, you know, the vegan diet versus the meat eater diet, and, you know, since Mike went into the polyphenol flavonoid direction, I have some examples that I want to share with the listeners as well. That's like really, really important. Like, this really provides a lot of evidence about how the differences in the diet, especially long term, right, truly impact the gut health. And there's millions of these bacteria, right, that are super hard to pronounce. So I'm gonna make this really easy. We're gonna talk about like protective anti-inflammatory bacteria and destructive pro-inflammatory bacteria, right? So those are the two categories we're going to use. So in one paper that I looked into, they were talking about protein sources, and they were looking at the difference in the bacteria expression when you're consuming plant-based protein versus animal-based protein. So with individuals that consume the soy protein, the pea protein, or other kind of plant protein sources, all these studies showed an increase in the protective anti-inflammatory bacteria and a decrease in the destructive pro-inflammatory bacteria. So like, how's that for people that are afraid to eat soy, right? The gut is changing because of what you're eating, and it's doing it in a favorable way, right? These proteins increase diversity, and this increase in diversity is negatively correlated with obesity and metabolic diseases, right? So there's even more proof for you. And a lot of these foods have those short chain fatty acids in there, and when you have the short chain fatty acids and an increase in anti-inflammatory bacteria, it's protective because it increases the gut barrier defenses, right? So you guys were kind of mentioning leaky gut here, right? So that's one of the ways to kind of defend yourself against leaky gut is by bringing in more plant-based protein. Now, like animal protein, right? And you can plug in any type of protein you want here that comes from an animal. It's the polar opposite. It's the exact opposite, right? So an increase in pro-inflammatory destructive bacteria and a decrease in the healthy bacteria. Also a decrease in diversity.
So wait, what you're saying is that the animal protein is what creates leaky gut?
We can never point our finger at a single thing when it comes to pathology, but we can say that it may
Could be one
play
factor.
a role, right? It could be a factor that plays a role, right? And then if we look at like fat, right? There's two very different types of fat. We have saturated fat and unsaturated fat, right?
Right.
Diets that are high in unsaturated fat, which is the fats that we get from plants, are protective. They protect. They increase anti-inflammatory and protective bacteria, and they decrease the destructive bacteria. So even in fat consumption, we have, if you're eating plant-based fat, you have this protective effect, right? And one of the research articles, they found that when you have unsaturated fat, you have a decrease in arterial stiffness, right? So we talk about cardiovascular disease. We start talking about plaque developing in the body and increasing blood pressure and total peripheral pressure. That goes away. And there's also been a reduction in this thing called TLR, which is toll-like receptor. So people that consume more unsaturated fat and they have more of this protective bacteria, they also have a decrease in toll-like receptors, which are inflammatory receptors. So they're looking for a ligand that's going to bind to them and increase inflammation. Where animal fat, so when we start talking about saturated fat, completely opposite, right? Increase in pro-inflammatory, increase in destructive bacteria. And this fat activates toll-like receptors. So it increases more of these like pro-inflammatory receptors, which is just going to induce more inflammation. It's also been associated with liver damage and insulin resistance. So, I mean, I don't know what other evidence we really need, right? I mean, that's pretty clear cut, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you want to talk about like probiotics versus prebiotics?
Yeah, what is that? What is the like they say take probiotics,
Usually you hear
be
the
careful about
probiotic
antibiotics. Like what is that? Decode that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, one thing that I thought about is I've tried to draw comparisons to gardening and like probiotics and prebiotics. So like, as far as I understand it, and Brian, you can correct me on this, is like a prebiotic, like in marketing terms, is like something that you should eat or take as like a vitamin or some kind of supplement, and it gives you a proper environment for beneficial microbes. And then a probiotic is the microbes that you want to inoculate.
Oh, okay.
Right? So like, but I guess from what I'm hearing now, it's like a prebiotic is basically food, real food, whole food, like cooked beans and whole grain rice, you know, like simple staple foods that are in their whole form. That's a prebiotic, right? That's going to give you a fibrous home in which the beneficial microbes can live.
I see.
And then a probiotic, I would even guess that like if you're eating healthy foods and like diverse foods, you shouldn't have to introduce probiotics into your diet because they're just going to come on their own. So this is where I draw comparisons to gardening. Okay, so here's the story. Like in gardening, I mean, I've been gardening for 12 years now. I'm no expert, but one thing I have seen time and time again is like you dig under the soil in some parts of the garden and you see lots of red worms. And you go, "Oh, this is great. This is a healthy soil." And then other parts of your garden, there might not be any red worms or earthworms. And so like for so many years I've seen people say like, "Ooh, I need to get some red worms and put them in my garden." And like I'm thinking to myself, if you need to buy red worms or earthworms for your garden, what's wrong with your soil? Like the earthworms should be there on their own. You shouldn't have to get them, right? So like I started to realize that like if you can start to actually build healthy soil by creating as much compost as you can, putting lots of leafy mulch on the ground, and it stays wet, the worms will come. Those are your probiotics. Like they come, you don't have to do anything except create the right environment. So like if your garden has the right environment, the earthworms will come to it and they'll live and they'll be happy and you'll have a healthy garden. Right? If you're trying to like bottle the goodness and you try to like force it to work and you go and buy earthworms from some store and then you try to force them to survive in the harsh desert soil that has no fiber, or should I say carbon, you know, the worms are just going to perish. They're not going to make it. So it's the same thing with your gut. If you're not giving yourself the prebiotics, which is whole food plant-based diet, then the probiotics will not survive in your gut, or they're not going to do as well because they need a place to live.
Sure. Right.
So, yeah, that's
an incredible analogy. That's awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah.
He's thought about that. I like that.
Yeah, he's like, yeah. So that's really interesting. And it kind of makes me think about, and you guys can chime in on this, right? Like most of the prebiotics, right, that we can deliver to our body are all these things that have been like demonized, right? So, and what I'm talking about is complex carbohydrates, because those are both pre and probiotics.
So if you're
right?
on a
So
low carb diet, then you might be depriving yourself of prebiotics.
right, and think about the ramifications of that, right? Think about the impact of that. So like if you're not eating soybeans because you're afraid you're going to get moobs, right? Well, we just told you that the phytoestrogen is beneficial for your gut, and soybeans are also a prebiotic, right? So it's like a double whammy. Or if you're not eating wheat because you are not eating carbohydrates, well, wheat is a prebiotic and a probiotic, and all these things that like we're afraid to eat. And if you're on a low carb diet, or you're doing like the paleo diet, or you're doing the Atkins diet, okay, you're gonna lose weight, right? Because it's just metabolically, it's gonna alter how you metabolize, fat and protein in your body. But you're also adversely shifting the bacteria populations in your gut, right? If you're not delivering prebiotics, if you're not delivering probiotics, then you're delivering more protein and fat than anything, right? And we just talked about how protein and fat, specifically from animal products, create this adverse environment where you have more of this destructive gut bacteria, right?
Yeah.
So it just like really blows my mind that we're so quick to demonize these macronutrients, but like when we get into episodes like this, you see like how beneficial they are. And as we talked about 100 times on this show, like every cell in your body is designed to metabolize glucose, and you're going to get glucose from carbohydrates, and you're going to get glucose from soybeans, and you're going to get it from wheat and barley and oats, and all these things are negatively associated with cardiovascular disease and heart disease. And now we see that they're all pre and probiotics, and they're all favorably altering the microbiota, and there's still these commercials on TV that are just eat this diet, eat this diet, eat this diet, and lose weight, feel great. And the evidence, the scientific biomedical evidence, is all right here. It's very clear, right?
Yeah.
We're not making this information up.
It's almost like if you're constantly changing your diet, you're constantly moving to the next best diet that supposedly you heard about. What's happening in your gut is almost like a natural disaster, where like a fire moves through. If you live in California, you know what I'm talking about. Fire is like moving through the annual grasses and just burning them up. And what comes next? The fast-growing, opportunistic weeds. Like the short-term stuff, the parasitic stuff. Those are the things that are going to come back fast as soon as you've kind of try to like give your gut, a drastically changing diet. And so if you keep doing that, you're going to keep getting the weeds. Like if you want to have an old growth forest in your gut, you have to give it some stability and consistency. Like otherwise it's just going to get confusing. It's going to be a mess,
Totally.
And the hustler's just killing it with these analogies today. I'm just saying.
Storyteller here, man.
Like he's just killing it. So gangster.
Well, let me try a story. Let me try this one on you. Speaking of bedtime stories here, which you guys are significantly cutting in on my new sleep. I'm into these sleep apps now, right? So I got a sleep app,
yep.
and for years I've always said, what would I do? I need an 8th day of the week. What would I do? Right?
Sleep,
dude. I am killing it. I'm a 20 plus year snoozer. I'll hit that snooze button, no problem. My mornings are always more times than not. It's just really challenging in the morning, right?
Yeah.
And I tell you what, I started doing this thing, and I didn't believe it at first, and I got into it, and all of a sudden, man, like I don't want to wake up 30 minutes before my main time is to wake up. But I tell you what, for weeks I've been doing this, and I am so much. I cannot go back to bed. I am on from the first eye opening It's amazing. It's so cool. It just, it wakes you up in between the REM cycle. It's amazing. It's fantastic when you're on the top of your REM cycle. It's so great. So I heard this, and I just want to double check with you guys. Is there a correlation between proper sleep? I know sleep is like the key to everything, right? Like what do we already talked about diet, exercise, and sleep. So I see it's rearing its head again here. Is there a correlation between sleep and healthy gut bacteria or healthy gut in general? And did you guys ever find anything about this, or do you guys talk about that?
There's very little information on it because it's still kind of a new area of scientific inquiry. They do speculate that there is a brain-gut kind of microbiome axis where the brain and the gut do communicate with each other. They speculate that, sleep deprivation or poor sleeping habits might unfavorably alter gut bacteria in those populations. But the jury's kind of still out on that, and there's really no solid evidence that shows that. But the fact that they made a connection, like a mechanistic connection between the brain and the gut through this microbiome axis, it's a step in the right direction. So, they're still in the very beginning stages of understanding this. And when it comes to sleep and physiology and the gut, it's a very, very complicated and dynamic relationship.
I'd say if you're getting a more quality of sleep, then your body's going to go into kind of a fasting mode more consistently. And then think about the microbes in your gut fasting a little bit. What does that look like? And it kind of reminds me of the shortening of telomeres in for example, if you starve a fungi a little bit, it starts to lose its telomeres at less of a rate than before. So if you overfeed a microbe, it'll actually burn out quicker. Whereas if you give it a chance to kind of basically
survive
on its own without an excess of resources, it will actually become scrappier and it will live longer. Right, so maybe your microbes are healthier if they're not constantly getting shoveled with food on them all the time. Give them a chance to kind of get settled.
I have no problem with adding extra sleep to my day. That does not take any convincing. So
there's a study that shows that if you lived through the Great Depression, you're more likely to live to be 100. And it's because of the thinking is that because of
natural selection.
No, because of being starved a little bit, calorically restricted a little bit. So, and also eating a lot of beans because
that's what they ate, right?
Yeah.
So they were healthier.
Right. I mean, they were certainly eating more plants, eating less in general, and that kind of to me relates to a little bit of fasting. So sleep can also be thought of as a fasting period that you do every day.
Sure, right.
So
nice.
That's beneficial.
And thanks to you guys for our exercising episode. I've been cycling now, and I've been
attaboy.
Yeah, it's good. It's just cold, and I'm like, oh, it's too cold to go out. It's too early. It's too cold. But sometimes I get out. I need to be more religious and to a schedule, but it's good. So that's the other thing is does exercise affect gut health and gut bacteria?
Yeah.
This is kind of an area that's emerging as well, and it's also very complicated because exercise itself usually induces acute inflammation. It's necessary to help the muscle and to help the body repair from a bout of exercise. There have been some studies that show that different exercise training kind of can impact the severity of intestinal inflammation if an inflammatory assault is already present. So if somebody has some sort of colitis that they're dealing with, exercise can aggravate it more. But there's other research out there that is looking into that connection as well between exercise and gut health, and focusing on that kind of inflammatory axis, and whether or not exercise shifts and increases protective bacteria while downregulating or decreasing the harmful bacteria. But again, it's at its infant stages right now, and there's just not much on it. But just like everything else, exercise is medicine. Exercise heals wounds. Exercise fixes diabetes. Exercise does everything. So I am sure there is a connection between the two. We just haven't discovered it yet.
It seems like there's a lot of cool stuff coming in science and health and lifestyle that we'll be seeing in our lives with a lot of these different connections within our own body. So, that's pretty cool.
I do remember reading one study on this, and it was done in rodents, and I don't know how relevant it is, but it was something like they exercised impregnated rodents, and they found that exercise regimens helped kind of shift and transfer over the healthy gut bacteria to the babies. So that was kind of an interesting thing. So there is a link there. So potentially exercising when a baby is in the womb might be beneficial. And, if that's true in rodents, it may be true in humans. But we need kind of translational science and translational evidence to kind of show that correlation. But yeah, we're starting to explore. There are a lot of scientists have to put their hands in people's poop to study this bacteria. So it's
you can actually get paid to do that.
What?
Yeah, you can make something like $20,000 a year if you.
So I can stop doing it for free?
Give your poop samples to someone.
Yep, you have to give it to a scientist, and they have to.
You have to be healthy
run all
too.
These tests on it.
So
yep.
you got to be plant based.
Well,
get your $20,000.
Hey, Brian, tell everybody what your address is, and we'll just send it all your way, bro. Wow. Do you get? Okay, on that stinky note, anybody else, you guys have anything you want to add to this gut health, go with your gut episode?
I think this was incredibly informative, and I think it just provides further evidence that, we should be moving towards a plant-based society. And for every reason that we've been talking about on every single episode. I'm sure people out there are saying, "Oh, well, they're cherry picking research," and we're really not. You can look at all this research in PubMed or through whatever publication you want, and you can see that this evidence is very clear. It's just that we haven't really been doing a lot of research on veganism because it's always been taboo, right? Like for the last,
Yeah.
It's only been accepted really for the last 10 years, right?
Sure.
Maybe 15 years, it started gaining a lot of momentum. So it only makes sense that with our shift in interest in diet and with society kind of making this shift, that we're going to do more research in it.
Right.
So,
and I'd say
I would say
to the paleo diehards out there that might be listening to this, the difference between someone on a paleo diet and on a plant-based diet doesn't have to be so polar opposite to actually be beneficial. So it's like we're Democrats and Republicans, we don't have to agree on everything, but we should agree on the fact that plants are the most healing things you can ever put inside your body, and everyone needs them, and a lot more than we might think.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, you guys touched on it a second ago. I wanted to throw out a couple of the episodes that we have coming up for everybody to keep an eye out for, or an ear out for, as it were. The water and soil episode, which there's so much decay happening in our world in both water and soil, and only 1% of the world's water is potable, right?
So, 2% of the Earth's water is fresh water,
Thank you.
1% is frozen, although that's going to change. But, only 1% is currently usable
So interesting. You guys always talk about all this stuff. I'm still trying to learn. Like you said, Brian, these episodes are crazy. So much of what you guys are saying is so over my head, but I try to latch on and make some relations with my own life. But for everybody listening, thank you. And links that we've talked about, little tidbits of information that we've uncovered and chatted about will be included in the show notes. We have more episodes coming your way, like we said, water and soil episode, and of course we keep putting this off. I know it's kind of sensitive, but a little close to home here. Why are my friends dying? Right, this is a thing. It's happening to all of us here. It's happening more and more. Maybe that's either because we're getting old or lifestyles are colliding. But at any rate, it's something to definitely talk about and to kind of keep the conversation going with loved ones. We are the Plant-Based Riot, and you are making the choice to live a longer, healthier, disease-free life. Brian, what are you going to be doing with those extra disease-free years?
I'm not going to piss off the bugs that are freeloading in my gut.
That's good. See, he's been paying attention to this episode. Yep. Very nice. Well, hey, Plant Eaters, thanks for listening to our show, Go With Your Gut. This show has been written and recorded by the Plant-Based Riot, Brian, Mike, and myself. Our program is produced by Greg Hennigan, a.k.a. the Mike Ditka of Guitar Teachers. Say hello to Greg at gregsguitarlessons.com. I'm Dan Farnham with the Plant-Based Riot, and we are your weekly dosage of a healthy lifestyle awareness here on the Plant-Based Riot. You can follow Plant-Based Riot on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at the Plant-Based Riot.